Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting of Monday, July 24th at 4:30. And just a couple announcements, just a reminder that the Plaza has entertainment on Friday and Saturday nights. The last couple weekends have been very, uh, people have really come out and enjoyed it. And just want to say a special thank you to Public Works. It took a lot to put everything together and get that going. And just thank you for all their efforts. And Alicia and her team, they've really engaged the kids with the games and everything else. So thank you everybody for all your efforts. I would like to ask if there's any additions to the agenda. Nope. So I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please. Tom?
I move that council adopt the agenda for the July 24th, 2023 regular council meeting as presented.
Seconder, Tony? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of July 10th, please? Lisa?
I move that council approve the minutes for the July 10th, 2023 regular council meeting as presented.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? All in favor? Carried. And can I get a motion to accept the council board and committee meetings attached for the library and the housing administration? Patrick?
I move the council accept the information from the Drumheller Public Library January to April minutes and the Drumheller Housing Administration March minutes as presented.
Seconder, Stephanie? Comments? All in favor? Carried. All right, we shall move on to 8.1.1, please, Daryl.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you is a request for decision for second and third readings of the West Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw 11.22. So these are a bit of reminders because these went for first reading a year ago or a bit more. So this was done, there was a public hearing done last summer, and this went into the province, into Alberta Transportation, and we just received them back July, actually it was about 2 weeks ago. So the wheels of the province move a bit slowly considering its highways. Sorry, no pun intended. Anyway, the intention of this project with these road closures is that just a reminder for everyone, is that the berms that were built in Newcastle and Midland and downtown as well were all built by the province back in the 80s, and they were all built on provincial owned lands, which one of their tools for that is a road right of way. Part of the flood mitigation project is to take those lands and transfer them from the province to the town, because the town will now own the berms and the land underneath it. And to do that, we need to close the roadways that they were sitting under. So these are basically a key piece of our transferring is to actually convert the roads into basic land or bare land for us to then get transferred from the province to the town of Drumheller. So this first one is the West Newcastle. So there are a bunch of parcels in that area. You can see on the attachment Schedule 1, which was, there's a large pieces A, B, C, D, E, and F, which basically takes you from 12th Street West to the west end of Newcastle, and offers a couple of the little pieces for potential sale to the homeowners at the end of Newcastle Trail at a future date if they so inclined. And the rest of it is just simply taking the land that is from the river into which is where the land, the roadway starts at, and taking it to incorporate the berm footprint so that then does not become a road right of way any longer. So the request is for this one is to pass second and third readings of the road closure bylaw.
Thank you, Daryl. Can I get a motion, council, please? Tony?
I move that council give second reading to the West Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw 11.22 as presented.
Seconder? Crystal? Comments? All in favor? Carried. A motion for third reading, please. Stephanie?
I move that council give third reading to West Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw 11.22 as presented.
Seconder? Lisa, comments? All in favor? Carried.
The next one on our list is the East Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw, 12.22. So same thing, second and third readings. So this one, same exact process. There's a little bit difference. One of the things that's kind of interesting about our land in Newcastle Park is that a chunk of it is actually, again, road. Alberta Transportation, they call it road right of way, although if you look at parcel L, you could say, well, that's one big road. But it was just the mechanism that they had at the time when they were trying to provide us with land way back when. Sorry, I can't think of a better example than that. So again, wherever the hatched area is, we're trying to clean some of this up. So L, for instance, happens to be where the dog park is, happens to be part of Ball Diamond number 2. And there's a bunch of other area in there. So we're trying to clean that up because it doesn't belong to the province. It has been cared for and maintained by the town of Drumheller for decades. And we're just trying to clear this up. And really, G is the area, and a portion of H is where the berm construction is. But closing that again, so that's not a public right of way. So again, looking for second and third readings on this as well.
Motion, please. Tony?
I move that council give second reading to East Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw 12.22 as presented.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion for third reading, please? Lisa?
I move that council gives third reading to East Newcastle Road Closure Bylaw 12.22 as presented.
Seconder? Tom? Oh, sorry. Tom, I looked at you, but you didn't have your hand up. We accept that. Crystal? Okay. Comments? Crystal or Lisa?
So if I understand this correctly, we're just doing some housekeeping, correct?
That is correct, Councillor, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. All right, Dagan, let's move on to 8.1.1, please.
So this is the first of 3 expropriation proceedings that I have before council this evening. So this one was brought to council back in April of this year. Discussions with the landowners began in November of last year. So actually November of 2022. So they've been ongoing for quite some time, but we hadn't been able to come to an agreement with the particular landowner on the next steps for purchase of the lot. And this one is a full buyout. And so we did move to notice of intent to expropriate in April. That was registered with land titles. The landowner was notified, and there was no objection made to the notice of intent to expropriate within the 21-day notice period. So the next step in the process now is for us to proceed with the certificate of approval and resolution for expropriation. So the documents I have before council cover that. There's the certificate and the resolution, and I do have the full purchase lot plan attached as well for information.
Thanks, Dagan. Can I get a motion, please? Tom?
When I turn on my mic, I move that council approve the certificate of approval and resolution for expropriation pertaining to the parcel of land described as Lot 7, Block 2, Plan 8011-334, title number 921258594.
I think that's the wrong one.
Sorry, wrong one,
Yeah.
Tom.
8.1.1, please, Tom.
One more.
That was close.
Not even. There you go.
I actually move that council approve the certificate of approval and resolution for expropriation pertaining to the parcel of land described as Lot 2, Block 3, Plan 8011334, title number 011092193.
Thank you. Seconder. Patrick, comments? All in favor? Oh, Lisa did have a comment?
I just wanted to say and remind people that this council and administration never ever wants to go through the course of expropriation. However, in expediency and the fact that we need to get this project done to protect our community, we're doing so.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. 8.1.2, please, Daryl, or Megan, sorry.
Yeah, so the next one that we have before council is a very similar situation where we did bring this to council back in April, and the notice of intent to expropriate was approved by council. It has since been registered by land titles, and it was served on the registered property owners. And we hadn't received any notice of objection in the 21-day notice period. And so the next step again is for council to decide on the certificate of expropriation, or sorry, certificate of approval for expropriation and the resolution to proceed with expropriation. And again, this particular parcel is a full buyout that we do need to purchase the whole lot to have space to build the berm.
Thanks, Megan. Motion, please. Crystal?
I move that council approve the certificate of approval and resolution for expropriation pertaining to the parcel of land described as Lot 7, Block 2, Plan 8011334, title number 921258594.
Seconder? Tony, comments? All in favor? Carried. And 8.1.3, Dagan.
So the final request for decision that we have, excuse me, before council is for partial acquisition of a parcel needed for berm construction. And this one was passed by council at the Noit stage in May. And then subsequently registered with land titles. The landowner was recently notified of the intent to expropriate, and there was no objection received in the 21-day period following the notice. And so again, the next step here is to decide on the certificate of approval for expropriation and the resolution to proceed with expropriation. And following that, we would proceed to register with that with land titles and move on with the expropriation process. And then you can see the map attached showing the area required for construction of the berm here. So a portion of the berm will be in the town's environmental reserve land, but we do need a portion of the lot for construction.
Thanks, Dagan. Motion, please. Patrick?
I move that council approves the certificate of approval and resolution for expropriation pertaining to a portion of the parcel of land described as Lot 5, Block 2, Plan 8011334, title number 191245422.
Seconder, please. Tony, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Dagan. All right, Mauricio, we'll move on to you. 8.2.1, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I present my report, I would like to say that it's been a pleasure to serve the council and the residents of the town of Drumheller. And yeah, I enjoy my time here. So before council tonight is a request for decision, and the recommendation is to adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that for 2023 to 2043 that was presented to council on July 10th, 2023. As council knows, the two documents have been shared with the public. So one of them being the actual master plan and one being the current state research and engagement summary report. They both can be found on our website. As part of the creating the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the consultant RCS Strategies conducted several methods, such as the review of the current service delivery practices, facility utilization, benchmarking, um, population and demographic analysis, and other things. The result was a final document that provides recommendation to council and administration uh, for the years to come on what things can be invested on when it comes to parks and recreation. Every year, administration will be using this document to make recommendations to council on what things should be done as part of this. And with that, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Mauricio. Can I get a motion, please? Crystal?
I move that council adopts the Parks and Recreation Master Plan 2023 to 2043 as presented on July 10th, 2023.
Seconder? Lisa? Comments? Tom?
Very much appreciated the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It's a long time coming. Very comprehensive document. Before I get into that, I just want to thank Mauricio for your hard work and efforts over the last couple of years or whatever. Much appreciated. We really looked forward to your financial analysis and stuff, and it was very easy for some of us to read. So thank you very much, and good luck on your next endeavors. Yeah, I'm just wanted to mention, so we have all this information for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Now, in my opinion, I think at some time we are going to have to sit down and strategize what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how much we're going to spend, when, et cetera, et cetera. I look at this as, 10, 15, 20-year plan or whatever. And so I was just wondering, when do you think we might be getting into that kind of nitty-gritty stuff?
We're currently in the process of developing the capital budget for 2024, which includes the 10-year capital budget plan. So the infrastructure group is working off of the master plan as it currently has been presented, even though it hasn't been approved yet, to identify projects and prioritize projects based on where they're standing in that document. So I would suggest that as part of the capital budgeting process, that'll occur probably closer to where we've got something ready to present as some form of basis to council would be probably the best time.
Anybody else? Crystal?
Yeah, just my comment. I'm glad that we're already thinking about this because I don't want this to be a binder that just sits on a shelf. And we know in your request for decision later on that there's some major problems in our parks and recreation. So I really hope that maybe the other government levels are going to start contributing to recreation. That would be helpful for us, right? So that's just my comment. Glad to see that we're moving forward. And thank you, Mauricio. All the best.
Tony?
Yeah, and just to add to my fellow councilors there, this is a 20-year plan, which is an update from our previous plan, which was likely a 20-year plan, but is reviewed earlier than that. So for the listening public, it sets direction from a planning point of view. It's not to say that this document's going to last 20 years, but this is kind of a look ahead to the next 20, correct?
Yes, that is correct. This is a document that should be reviewed frequently, I would say every 5 years, to see what has been done and what has changed, right? Maybe some items will need to be reprioritized after 5 years. So yes, it is a living document.
Anybody else? All right, all in favor? Carried. All right, Mauricio, you're up next. 8.2.2, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next report is a request for decision for an increase in electricity franchise fees in 2024. We did some research as part of building this report, And we compared what the franchise fees are for electricity in the town of Drumheller and compared it to similar municipalities. We only did it for electricity. I want to indicate that for gas we didn't do it because the rate for gas is 27% and the maximum is 35%. So we felt that it was already fair, and basically we decided to leave it the way it is. But we decided to look at what does the electricity franchise fee look like. And based on our research, as you can see on the table on page 2 of my report, it was compared to places like Banff, Black Falls, Devon, Edson, Hinton, and other municipalities of similar size. And including Drumheller, the median was 12%, and Drumheller right now is at 9%. So we decided to make a recommendation to council to still keep below the median at 11.5%, and that would result in an increase of 2.5% from 9 to 11.5%. Now, what I would like to explain about this is basically this is a charge that is added to electricity bills, and all residents would pay that, including businesses and including hotels and government agencies. Everybody would pay at the same rate. So in a way, because it's based on consumption, for example, if a hotel has higher occupancy and they are paying higher electricity bills, then that would result in higher revenue for the town because the franchise fee is added to that as a rate, which means that it would be spread across not only to taxpayers but also visitors could be also contributing to that, right? Now, 2.5% would result in an increase in revenue of approximately 256,800 in 2024. So this would be equivalent to a little more than 2.5% in taxes, right? And how does that impact the average consumer? So we looked at one electricity bill just to see how it would impact. And the consumption for that particular resident was 692 kilowatt hours in 30 days. And what we noticed is that the increase would equate to $4.46 per month, roughly, or $53.53 annually. So as you can see, the impact is there, but the impact is not. It's not most residents won't see a huge increase compared to other charges. I would say, but for sure the municipality would be closer to the median, and it would bring additional revenue. Just for to put it in perspective, the maximum rate that a municipality can charge is 20%. So by law, that's all we can charge. And some municipalities are already charging 20%. So 11.5% would still be a very reasonable rate. So the motion for tonight is that council approve the increase from 9 to 11.5%.
Thanks, Mauricio. Can I get a motion, please, council? Stephanie?
I move that council approve the increase of the ATCO Electric franchise fees from 9% to 11.5%.
Seconder, please. Tony, comments? Well, let's start. It looks like we're going around, so we'll start with Lisa here.
Thank you. So first off, I appreciate the fact that administration has gone out to try to find ways to bring in more revenue to our community. However, I'm really torn on this. I know it's only on average $4 a month per residential, but at the same time, there's an interest rate increase, inflation, carbon tax, and everything else that has really made it difficult for people to live. So I question about the timing of this change. I know it's minimal, but if you also look at the impact it could have on businesses, it'd be definitely more than $4 a month, right? So, again, I'd just like to reiterate that I appreciate you looking for ways, looking outside the box, and that we only can do this once every 5 years. Once a year, but you have to give what, 6 months notice?
We have to, so basically we have to follow a process. Once council passes a motion to increase the rates, we have to advertise for 2 weeks in a local newspaper. So we would have to do that in the next 2 weeks should council pass the motion tonight. And then after that, we will, residents have the ability to basically object the increase and express their concerns. Uh, and once they have done that, that would be we would be looking at that and compiling it. And if there is not strong opposition, then we would apply for that increase to the Utilities Commission, and they would look at the application. And if everything is in order, they would go ahead with the increase.
Thanks, Mauricio. I just want to say that I've had about 7 people approach me on this subject, and not a single one has been in favor. And I don't blame them. When you struggle to pay food to put on the table or house to live in, I just, like I said, just not the time.
Patrick,
Explain to me that process a little bit more. It seems this is a motion to make the change, but then we're going to the people after, and then if we decide not to, we have to come back and rescind the motion. Wouldn't it make more sense to propose it and then do the motion when we know where we want to go?
Yes, that's a fair question. So basically, the motion is to basically give us the green light that we can go ahead and advertise that council is considering this increase. And once it's been passed, then we can do the advertisement, right? We can't really. The reason why we can't do the advertisement before is because we do not know what rate council would be comfortable with. So let's say that we say, oh, we would like to say 2.5%, and then council decides that only 1.5, right? Then the advertisement in the final motion would not match. So in this case, council has the ability to change that. Basically, if council feels that it's better to go 1% increase or 1.5, that can be done. Um, the ad is basically to, yes, to give the residents the opportunity, and yes, if the CAO receives those concerns and there is too many, then it will likely have to come to council and indicate that there has been many concerns, and therefore we are not going to proceed with the application. So nothing happens until we actually submit the application and the Utilities Commission approves it.
Okay. It still seems a little bit backwards. Can you describe, some of the new, we're only 6 months in, but can you describe some of the new budgetary pressures that we will be looking at in the coming year?
Yes, absolutely. So in the upcoming year, and I would say in the upcoming years after that, uh, obviously one of the main concerns would be inflation. So we know that several things that we purchase on a regular basis have gone up in price. Therefore, when the 2024 budget is presented, you may see um, that certain things, even just to maintain the level of service that we have now, we will need more funds for that, right? So higher revenue will be required. You may also see that it is really important to maintain transfers to reserves, because those are the ones that build those reserves to be able to do investments in capital. And as I have mentioned to council in the past, I have seen a lot of, based on the capital plan, I see a lot of pressures on reserves, especially on the tax supported reserves. And the main reason for that is that there is a lot of capital projects that are coming up, and that some of them are required and some of them um, are things that a council would like to do. So therefore, maintaining healthy reserves would be vital. So again, that comes from general revenue as well, except utilities. Utilities are funded by utility revenue.
Can you tell me the last time it was adjusted and what the change was?
That's a really good question. I actually tried to find that out. To be honest with you, I was not able to find out exactly when it was adjusted, but I can tell you that in 2013, that's what the records at ADCO show, the rate was at 9%. So basically, they were not able to tell me whether at that point it was increased or it was just maintained. So I can't tell you that, but I know that the rate 10 years ago was exactly the same as it is now. So it hasn't changed.
Stephanie?
Thanks, Mauricio, for all your hard work for the town and everything. You're gonna be missed. I guess some of my questions were already answered. I was curious about the last time the franchise fees were increased. So I guess I don't really have any questions anymore. Thanks, Mauricio.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks again, Mauricio, for your work on this and looking outside the box. And I guess the big thing here is the town is not exempt from the same inflationary pressures and price increases and everything that we're all going through. This part of your bill is still although it is revenue to the town, it is part of balancing the operating budget that we just passed and we'll be looking at again. And as we're all prepared, those expenses are probably going to go up again. The same inflationary, the same price cost, the same whichever. So I know it's been a considerable amount of time. I'm not sure when the date was of the last increase, but I clearly know it wasn't in the last couple 3 years that we have increased. And you get to the point, I guess, where we try to maintain a median of looking at other communities, and we're definitely not the highest. Like you say, there's some that are 18 and 20%. The median here is 12. We're below that. I would support an increase to kind of maintain the median. I wouldn't want to see it going higher than that. Again, we're well below places like Black Falls, Devon, Innisfil, Olds, Tabor, some of those that are pushing 18, 20%. So I know $4 doesn't sound like much on a monthly bill. And yes, the town franchise fee is still the smallest part of that bill when you look at transmission and distribution. That's in the 40 to 50% range of your total bill. This council last term and this term renewed a resolution at the AUMA, and they are fighting this cause for us, taking it forward. So hopefully we work towards a resolution on transmission and distribution costs. But that lobbying will be stronger from AUMA than it's ever been from us. But it is also a concern of a number of communities around Alberta that struggle with the distribution and the transmission as well. So, i.e., the resolution was made and it was supported by the province members of the municipalities. So again, it is an increase. It's a minor increase. It still leaves us below the median. It is going to be revenue for the town that needs to deal with expenses in our 2024 budget that we're going to be looking at soon. So I would support the recommendation as outlined.
Tom?
Yeah, I echo Councillor Locker's sentiments. The biggest pig at this trough is the transmission distribution costs. Those are absolutely fantastic. And this council and previous councils have lobbied the Alberta Energy Regulator to normalize these costs across the province. And if we are successful, we could be looking at a significant decrease for energy costs to this community. So the small amount that we are increasing here could be offset if we are successful. And I think we are getting to that point where we might just be successful, considering that the province of British Columbia, the province of Saskatchewan, the province of Manitoba, they all normalize the distribution costs and transmission costs. So could work out.
Crystal?
Thank you. My first comment would be, I think the list of communities that you listed is not fair because none of them are in ATCO service area. So I don't think that's a good relation when they're in a service area where they actually have higher population. So whether they are EPCOR or NMAX or Fortis. So you have to take that into consideration because that's actually not a comparison at all. It's just based on population, but it's actually should be based on the actual service area. And I just pulled up the map and double checked, but none of those communities are in any of ATCO service area. My second comment would be, yes, I agree that this resolution with Alberta municipalities, I would like to see us put more energy into what can we do to get this really going. That is the biggest issue. And when I literally pulled my utility bills and did the calculations and everything, and for our business, it would be, sure, it's a little bit, but it's just under $7 a month increase. But in the winter months, it almost doubles, right? Because our utilities are so much higher in the winter months. And the residential is the same. It's actually just under $7 a month increase. So I would say I'm substantially try to use less power as much as I can, right? Like we've done all the things. So it's, yeah, it may not seem like a lot, but for some families, that is a lot each month and when it adds up, right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't move forward with this. I'm just saying we should maybe the same thing with the counselor Hanson Zacharak. The timing is just not great, and I know timing's not always the best, but I just, yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one too. So yeah, those are kind of my comments. So yeah.
Anybody else want to say, add in? All right, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Denied. Thank you, council. All right, Mauricio, 8.2.3, please.
Thank you, your worship. I'm going to be going to share my screen for this one. So this is my quarterly report for 2023. One thing that I want to mention is that for Appendix 3, it says 2023 municipal grants, but it's actually 2022 that I'm showing to council. So basically, what I do with this report is I want to give council an update on where we are at when it comes to our revenues and when it comes to our expenses. And it's a very high level report. So our total budget for total revenues would be 26.3 million. And the year-to-date revenue right now would be 12.8. So we are around 49%. Now, one thing that I want to explain to council is that for this particular report, I have only taken 50% of property taxes. Even though we sent the tax notices in May and the entire tax revenue is shown in our accounting records, I have only taken 50%. And as council knows, most of the tax revenue is collected in August. But that doesn't impact this report because it's basically it's an accrual report. So as you can see, we are basically within what we should be. We should be around the 50% because we are in the middle of the year. And everything seems to be either on budget or near budget. Of course, there are some revenues and expenses that are impacted by timing differences. So for expenses, for example, if we haven't received a big invoice, we won't have the expenditure yet. Uh, that's why when we have the year end done, we record all those expenses, and you may see that we are perhaps a little bit over budget on some of the expenses. And that's why we try to provide these reports quarterly so that council knows where we are heading. Um, so I have some highlights in my report. I'm sure council has seen those, so I won't read every one of them. Uh, but I can tell you, as part of the timing, government transfers or grants, some of them we actually receive them later on in the year, so you won't see them in this year. So that's why you may see that uh, that particular line is below budget, but nothing to be concerned. It can be a lot of it can be timing differences. Investment penalties and other income, they are trending slightly higher, but again, there can be a timing difference in some of those cases. It will tend to normalize towards year end. So when it comes to expenses, our budget says that our expenses, the annual budget is 22.5 million, and our expenditures to date are 11.2 million. So we are exactly at 50%. Now, remember what I said, that there can be timing differences. So perhaps some expenses are not yet in the books in June. Um, so these actually, at the end of the year, you can expect it to be a little bit higher than the 100%. By how much, I wouldn't be able to tell you because it'll depend on many factors. But um, to date, that's how we are trending, right? Salaries. One thing that I want to highlight is that we had union negotiations this year, and there'll be a retro pay that will be done. What you are seeing on salaries right now is basically what has been paid, so it does not include the retro pay. That will be included in the next quarter. Um, and then other expenses, they are trailing below budget, but again, it's because of timing differences. One thing that I want to mention is that things like transfers to and from reserves are not included here because basically this report focuses on cash expenses. And because of that, we do not include amortization either. Amortization is a non-cash expense and is done at year end, and therefore it's not included in this report. And that explains why revenue is higher than expenses, because the difference is basically that. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm also presenting information about um, the 2022 grants that we as a municipality applied for. And as you can see, we have been, if you ignore the pending part of the graph, the 73%, basically we've been successful 50% of the time. That's what the graph is telling you. Now, because it's based on dollar amounts, the 73% is high, right? That's the pending. So if you go to the last appendix um, in my report, you will see all the grants that we have applied for and the amounts. But before we go there, I would quickly like to mention about the appendix number 1, and that's where you see the individual um, revenue lines, such as municipal taxes, user and franchise fees. Sorry, user fees. That shouldn't be user and franchise fees because franchise fees, I keep them separately. So that's the third line that you see there. So this one would be only user fees, such as water, water and wastewater fees, recreation, and all that. Um, so you can see how it compares to the budget, right? The darker line will be the budget, and the orange line will be the actual figures. Um, and then down here, I'll show you the amounts basically. So what's the actual compared to budget, and what the percentage that has been achieved. And remember how I mentioned about government transfers? So that's what I was talking about, that 30%. Again, in most cases, it's a timing difference, so nothing to worry about. It will normalize as the year advances. Um, and appendix number 2 will be very similar to this, but it's for expenditures. And as I was saying, for grants, I give you a list of grants that we applied for in 2022, how much we got for each grant, if they were approved, or if they were denied. You'll find them at the bottom right here. And if they're still pending, they will be here. So as you can see, our application for bridge number 10 is the one that makes the highest dollar value. And that's why our pending, the report shows that a significant amount is still pending. So now I'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, council comments. Before I do though, I'm sorry, I just had something going through that I didn't comment, but just back to that electrical, I just wanted to let council know that Daryl and I had a meeting with some people that may have some options for us on the electrical side of things that we're looking at. So I meant to acknowledge that because this is why I voted against it, because I would like to hear what those results are before we bring this back again. So sorry for not clarifying that to you guys before. But anyways, comments on these reports. Tony.
Yeah, happy to see that we're on track, and as usual, Mauricio, the graphs and the charts make it fairly easy to see that. Hope you train the new guy in a similar manner. The grants continue to be a large part of our operating and our capital budget, so hats off to you guys for finding $700,000 for us. Some big capital items there that are still pending that are grant dependent for sure. You start replacing a bridge at 5.7 million, it's yeah, kind of grant dependent for sure. So well laid out, well presented, and it's good to see we're right on track.
Crystal?
Just, do you know when we're supposed to hear back from those grants that we're still waiting approval or pending approval on? Like how?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah.
I don't have the specific
that's
dates,
fine.
but all the ones to do with Alberta government, especially Alberta transportation, I'll be speaking to the coordinator for that in the upcoming few days to find out status of those requests.
And is there a reason why we didn't get those other ones? They seem like very important ones. Is it just money availability in the province? Yeah.
A lot of grants are highly competitive, and sometimes we are successful, sometimes we are not, and sometimes we apply for more than what we get, but we do our best, right?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Tom?
The taxes, every year we seem to end up with some properties not paying taxes. Is there any indication that there may be more this year because times are kind of tough? Any idea on that?
I haven't seen anything significantly different to other years. However, what happens is if a property has been paying their taxes on time, then they may go in arrears the first year, but we still do nothing, except add penalties to their account. The moment they enter into the second year, that changes. They go basically on an arrears list, and that's the time when the owner basically has to take some action. And what we recommend is that we enter into a tax agreement, right? So just to help them come up with a plan and clear their account. Um, if they take no action, then basically, as time goes, those properties would qualify for a tax sale, which we have annually, and we offer those properties at fair market value. Um, In most cases, they do not sell. So at that point, we have completed that part of the recovery process. But yeah, like I said, I haven't really seen indication that uh, there is anything different to other years.
Anybody else? Patrick?
It may seem like a silly question, but just looking at the first two charts with your percentage of revenue achieved and budget expense, we've got two different numbers for the budgets. Is it, are we expecting to collect 4 million more revenue than what we've budgeted to spend? Is that, or does one take into account utilities or?
Yeah. I believe Councilor Colafa, you are talking about the 26 million, right?
Yeah.
Versus the expenditure, which is 22.5 million, correct?
Yes.
So that's what I mentioned, that you'll see that the total revenue and total expenditures are different, and the main reason is because of the amortization. So when we build the budget, we include the amortization in there, and that balances the budget basically. But I'm not reporting on amortization here. I'm only reporting on cash expenditures. So if things stay the same, basically the difference is what we can transfer to reserves at the end of the year.
And just sort of a follow up, that last week we had received our annual audit, I guess, and we had there was some differences in the calculation for amortization, and we came up a little bit short. Now, do we try to make that up this year, or does it just mean we go deficit last year and build from there?
For this year, we actually budgeted similar to what we have done in past years. Um, we do not fully budget for amortization. And the main reason for that is that if we did, we would have to increase taxes by the difference, right? Which is actually fairly significant. So we we purposely budget for less, right? And we know that at the end of the year there is always that variance in amortization, which typically has been between a million and a million and a half. Uh, so for 2023, the answer is no, we didn't increase our amortization. Basically, we kept it similar to prior years.
But for whatever reason, in that last audit, that calculation's been fixed where we did fall short.
Yeah, there was some additional adjustments that we had to do for 2022 that we do not expect to have in 2023.
Steph?
So just looking at it and stuff and being halfway through the year and all our percentages are right around 50%, that kind of says we're right on track and doing pretty good.
Essentially, yes, but we have to keep in mind, like I said, that there are items that haven't been factored here yet. There could be some revenue that we still haven't accrued, for example. There can be some expenses that we haven't paid yet. So, and also there can be differences between the first 2 quarters and the last 2 quarters, right? Some expenditures may come until later in the year and not earlier in the year. So right now, yes, we are. It's looking good, but I would say that that's why quarterly reporting is important, because that's when we can refine the numbers and have a little more a better idea and tell council this is where we expect to end, and that's what I've been trying to do in the third quarter. Basically, tell council this is what I can see things ending, because by then we are getting close to year end.
Lisa?
Just one quick one. Thank you, Mauricio. So when it comes to the personnel cost, does that include the increase for policing
The increase for policing
wages
would be included in services.
and services? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, Mauricio, it's honestly been an absolute pleasure working with you. Well, first off, we can't thank Lynn and her team and everybody else for all the work they've done. The fact that we got our budget before the end of the year is incredible, and I know that Daryl will continue with the next person to move that the way it is. The reporting is something that we, in my first term, had begged for charts, and because this is the kind of stuff that we need to, especially newer counselors that are just getting into this. It has to be easy for them to understand because we're talking big dollars. So I just wish you all the best. Thank you for everything you've done for the town, and I know that you will do great things on your next adventure, and take care of yourself and your family. And thank you. All right, we're just going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll move on to 8.3, please. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So now we'll move on to 8.3.1, please, April, or FCSS manager regarding some decisions she would like.
Okay, evening, Mayor and Council. So before you is a request for decision with regard to an FCSS program policy. As you know, the town participates in the FCSS program because we have an interest in supporting the enhancement of social well-being in the community, and that aligns with the town's vision and the MDP. The town of Drumheller and the province of Alberta have a formal agreement to allocate funding to eligible preventative social programs, where the town matches a minimum of 20% of the funding received from the province. So in recent months, Town Council has sought greater clarity regarding roles and responsibilities in relation to FCSS. And so in response, administration has provided some detail on the current local practices, but we also researched what goes on in other communities and found that having an FCSS policy is pretty commonplace. And so the proposed policy is a council policy that reflects the town's accountability to the province and to the Act, and reflects a governance process that aligns with really common practices from across the province and in similar municipalities. So by creating this policy, it would ensure that both current and future elected officials and administration, and if there were ever an advisory board, the advisory board would have really clear policy to reference who's supposed to do what. So that's one of the key reasons for proposing that we introduce this policy. It also provides some definitions of key language that we use quite freely in FCSS, but that doesn't always mean the same thing to different people. So really being very clear about what the language means. Language such as what do we mean by preventative social programming? What do we mean by social well-being, etc. So Council also directed administration to research the possibility of introducing an FCSS board. And so what this policy does, it's written in such a way as to support a bylaw introducing an advisory committee to act as that board and what those duties would be. But it also allows that in the event that council decided not to do that, we know who would take on those duties that would normally be with a board. So it clarifies in both instances how that would work. So the benefit of this is that it supports the municipality to comply with our obligations that we have outlined in the FCSS Act and the regulation. And it's a guiding document for current and future folks that need to know what's going on. I think also having a policy written down affords greater transparency in understanding how the decision-making process works, and it supports Council's vision and actions identified in the Municipal Development Plan relating to complete communities and social and cultural services. So for those reasons, I am proposing the introduction of an FCSS policy.
Can I get a motion, please? Stephanie?
I move that council adopt the Drumheller Valley Family and Community Support Services Council Policy CDSB-C-01 as presented.
Seconder. Crystal, comments? Crystal?
Well, April, I appreciate you working hard on this policy, and before you're going to be leaving to enjoy your new family. So I know this has been a lot of work and researching and finding what's going to work best for our community. So I appreciate all the work you've done. And I guess I just have to say that just trying to really, like, it's taken me probably almost a whole year to really figure out FCSS and rules and responsibilities. And I feel like for future council, this is going to help eliminate a year of learning and trying to figure it all out. So I appreciate that. And yeah, that's all I kind of have to say about this specific one. So thanks.
Stephanie?
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Soretta's sentiments there, like, it's going to be great to have this policy in place to read, and for future council and members of FCSS, I think it's pretty good to have in place.
Tom?
I guess the way I look at it is You know, the town, I think, has done a good job with FCSS. And I think what we're looking at is that this could be even better. And so it's not that we haven't done a good job with FCSS, but I think if this is going to be more effective, if it's going to be more cost effective, then obviously this is the way to go.
Anybody else? Lisa?
Hi, April. I just want to say I think it's great. It's a good format and it's great guidance, not only for counselors, but your successor in the interim. So um, I realize you probably worked like mad to get this off. So thank you so much. And I really appreciated it. So I'm sure others will as well.
Anybody else? Tony?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that too. Thank you, April. There's a lot of work that's obviously gone into this. Thank you for hitting the deadlines. Policy is just part of good governance, and like Councillor Soretta had said before, new people coming in and taking a year to figure this out and how it's working, and it's upside down more than it's right side up. So I thank you for the policy. It's clear, it sets direction, and well done.
Anybody else? All right, all in favor? Carried. 8.3.2, please, April.
Okay, so following on from that, what we just approved is a policy specifically to FCSS. What Council also directed administration to research was options in relation to establishing a community advisory committee to support the work of the community development and social planning team and help improve overall well-being in the community. The direction was to look at an advisory committee that's remit extends beyond just FCSS. So if I just ask you to bear that in mind as we go through the rest of this. So what we found during our research is that most municipalities do have an advisory committee that supports FCSS, and of these, many have a wider mandate that extends to other similar work, such as non-preventative social programming, recreation, sometimes arts and culture in the same thing. And some examples are listed here, but there were many I could have listed on here as well. So I reviewed 15 or so bylaws that establish similar advisory boards. And in consideration of the direction that we had from council, I developed this proposed Community Development and Social Wellbeing Advisory Board bylaw for your consideration and for your feedback. So the following would be the mandate of this advisory board. The mandate would be to act as an advisory group to council on policy and high-level plenary issues that contribute to community development and enhancing social well-being. And such issues may include, but are not limited to, social needs and concerns, social supports and services, community-based work, and community development. And the bylaw itself goes into more detail about the roles and responsibilities of that advisory board. So, what would it mean for council if we were to do this? So it would mean that council would delegate responsibility for strategic planning relating to that mandate that I just described. It would mean that we ensure accountability for work relating to that mandate. It would ensure that external granting within the confines of the FCSS Act and regulation are met and done on an annual basis by members of the community as opposed to by members of council or administration. It would support a greater understanding of the CDSP budget and the multiple revenue streams that there are in it. We just saw some information about grants that have been applied to, and we've got a lot of them coming in, and so understanding what they all fund and everything is complex, and so this group would be dedicated to really understanding that. And it would also ensure that we have greater oversight of or that it would provide clear oversight of the strengthening families known as family fun Committee, which is a committee of FCSS. And again, it would help us to meet our municipal duties as outlined in the FCSS regulation around promoting public participation in the planning, delivering, and governing of the program. So they're just some things that it would mean if we were to introduce it. And so my recommendation is for council to proceed with establishing a community development and social wellbeing advisory board, and to begin developing communications to plan and support recruitment and training materials for that.
Motion, please. Crystal?
I move that council directs administration to complete a bylaw to establish the Community Development and Social Wellbeing Advisory Board to be brought forward to council for approval.
Seconder, Lisa, comments? Lisa?
As with the other one, I think this is great, especially for those who are possibly going to get involved with the board. Being involved on so many boards in the past, something like this would have been great on every other one that I sat on. So I appreciate the direction and the format, and the fact that, yeah, if it's approved, it still can be adjusted as we move forward as either a council or as that board. And it just gives the board a little bit more freedom, I think, to be able to do what they need to do to meet the act.
Anybody else? Crystal?
Yeah, I vision this as how some of the other council boards are, right? Where there's funds allocated to other services in our community, where we actually have other members of the large providing input into those boards as well. So I appreciate that. Hopefully we get a good range of people that have a good vision and know what the needs are of the community. So I'm looking forward to this this committee. So thanks again for getting this work done before your leave. So thanks, April.
Anybody else, Todd?
One of the big issues in Drumheller right now is finding people to serve on boards. I'm a part of many different organizations, and every one of them is looking for board members. Every one of them is looking for volunteers. This will be such an important board to have in Drumheller that I'm hoping people out there will see that, you know, maybe it's time to step up. Maybe it's time for them to donate a little bit of time and their expertise, because this is going to be a very, very important board for Drumheller. And so I'm just saying to anyone out there that if you want to be on a board, this is a very, very necessary one for the town of Drumheller, and your participation would be appreciated.
Anybody else? Patrick?
I'll just, echo what Councillor Zarisky is saying too, and why I'm confident with this is also that I think that there's a lot of really engaged stakeholders that are already working within the area that would make great things, and so, I appreciate the work that's put into this, and I think it will, sustain us.
It's just Stephanie.
So in your opinion, will this help kind of streamline things and keep things moving forward at a quicker pace for us?
That's a yes and no, if I'm completely honest. When you have a board, you have to obviously have regular meetings and take the time to spend with them to train them and to have them understand it. And then for items that are within their purview that they have decision-making authority over, then that obviously means that that's a process to ensure that that happens, where some of those decisions may previously have just been made. So that may take a little bit longer. What I do think is going to be the primary benefit is that we actually are allowing members of the public to participate in that decision-making process more directly, and that provides greater transparency. And so sometimes we can make decisions, and if people haven't had a chance to have an input in it, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board anyway. So I think that long term, it has the benefit of improving decision-making. I don't know that it's always a faster process, but I think it will improve decision making.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to swim against the water. So, first off, I think it's a great program. Unfortunately, I think the timing is absolutely the worst. You're done tomorrow, gone for 18 months. Heather Carlson just moved to Medicine Hat. Scott just moved to BC. We have a brand new CDSP person. We don't even have an FCFCS manager. And I just don't think it's fair that at this time we're going to plop more work on administration that already is bogged down trying to keep their head above water. So I think the timing is absolutely wrong. I think it needs to come forward, but I think we need, in fairness, if I was walking into a new role as an FCSS manager, I would like to read the documents, know what I'm getting into before I'm forced to take on something that literally got passed the day before. So I'm absolutely against the timing. I'm for the program, but I think this needs to come back in the fall after we've given a new person a chance to get their feet wet, see what is in FCSS. I personally would love to reevaluate. I'm all about trying to get the funds to the organizations, to the groups that are out there, rather than a lot tied up in administrative costs. So I'm against this being brought now, and I think we should reevaluate it and have it re-brought back this fall. So anybody else? Go ahead, Crystal.
What would be the implications if we table this till a new manager's in place? Like what? Do you know what that would look like?
I guess, so I'm gonna swim against her, right? So, so this isn't actually the bylaw, this is just giving direction to go and do it. So my expectation of that new manager is that one of their first tasks is to try to create this bylaw to bring it back to council for review. So it's actually not going and actually running out and doing the program. So it's really about creating it, and it's just the direction. Like the whole intent was to just get a direction that we were. Council wants to see something like this happen. Because if council doesn't want to see it, then that's an easy answer. But if council does want to see it happen, the expectation is the new person, once they're established, will be able to do this. I don't see this coming back before Christmas, probably. So, but it's just giving direction to do that. So.
And would that be part of their interview? That's, hey, this is gonna be part of your role.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that'd be
absolutely.
a heads up. Okay.
It's a piece of how, like, here's the expectations of what we're thinking of for CDSP and FCSS. So we want to make sure that we're getting the person. Yeah, we've done interviews already. And we've asked those questions specifically about the ability to create a document like this and a team. So.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Please note. Thank you. All right, let's move on to 8.4.1, and thank you, April, and good luck with your the rest of your way on your pregnancy, and thank you for all you do, and wishing you happiness and health, and keep us posted how everything's going. Okay, take care. Dave, 8.4.1, please.
So, thank you, Your Honor. I get to continue my trend of being the bearer of bad news. So, the briefing note that is the first item is regarding the indoor pool and an issue that came up with the recirculation pump. So, the background here basically is that at one of the previous Aquaplex indoor pool renovations, the filter system that was originally installed there was swapped out for a 3 sand filter system. In order to get that system working and the pumps working for it, they took the tank that was there of the old filter, modified it by knocking out one of the side walls, the wall that faces the actual indoor pool in the mechanical room, putting a butterfly valve in, putting a hairnet strainer, and putting a pump. We had an incident a couple of years ago with the pump falling while it was being lifted out and some damages that were in there. Luckily, no one was hurt. We've adjusted our safety procedures to account for it. However, when they did the work, they never actually replaced the wall that they knocked out. They just left the foundational underlying backfill under the foundation slab, the base slab present. In addition to that, the backwash from the new filters was just being dumped down a floor drain and discharged to the sanitary system through that. What appears to have happened is that the greater chlorinated water that was coming out of the filters corroded the cast iron piping of the floor drain that was buried under the floor. At which point, with no pipe there, the water was just basically a garden hose, fire hose setup, pouring straight into the foundational material. That all got washed out and into the pump pit, which is what triggered the pump to stop working. So what we've discovered is that there is at least a 1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 meter void under the floor of the mechanical room and part of the hallway adjacent to it. The pipe from the return pipe from the indoor pool that passes through that no longer has adequate support, which means it's settled, which caused the hairnet strainer and the pump to all kind of bind. So we had challenges getting those out. So we've hit a point now where the proper right way to fix this and make it so that it's safe for our staff to use is at a bare minimum breaking out some of the floor, expanding that pump pit the way it should have been done, in my opinion, in the first place, and then rebuilding the slab. In addition to that, we're going to have to figure out how much of the sanitary pipe system has been corroded, because if it's all cast iron, it could be quite a bit more extensive than what we've so far discovered, and replace that. In order to replace that, we're probably going to have to knock out sections of flooring in the lobby and hallway of the aquaplex in order to rip that up, replace the piping, and then put all the floor back. Based on what I'm seeing of current costs to do work, because everything keeps going up, and the fact that as soon as I start opening stuff, it's likely I'm going to find something else, which is what happened with the outdoor pool the first year that I was here. So I remember that incident. I would not want to start doing this work without having a budget of at least $750,000 in place. Now, what that would get us is a pool that returns us back to where we are right now. The 3 sand filters that are in place, we need 2 to run the indoor pool. Currently, 1 is busted because the filters are old enough that they're no longer in production. We can't get the parts to repair it. We have figured out a way to do a cheap, I will describe it as a bodge, to fix them and get them back up and running. But if anything else were to go wrong with those filters, they would be down. The mechanical room is very constrained. It has several safety concerns that myself and Andrea and Reg and Jason all have. So the simple fact is the $750,000 repair will get us back up and running, but I could not guarantee that this pool will last 10 years with those repairs in place. In order to get the pool to a 10-year lifespan, which is when, according to the master plan that was just approved, we would like to have a new pool in place of some sort. I would probably to do this correctly, need probably $1 to $2 million to enlarge the mechanical room so that we can actually safely carry out work there. Probably put in a better or newer style filter that we can actually be reliably get parts for, and open it up. One of the problems that we're having here is the 3 sand filters are in horizontal cylinders. Due to the lack of clearance above them, in order for pool staff to turn the valves to do the backwash, which they're required to do weekly, someone small in the pool, needs to crawl on top of the tanks in a space that's about that thick to get to the valves to turn them. So this is something that we've been doing through procedures rather than an engineering fix, but is not it's not something that I would consider safe. We've done what we can to make it safe, but it's not what I would consider safe. So I really do feel that the better thing to do to try and keep this pool, which the master plan has indicated is a priority for the community, would be to extend the mechanical room and get it into a shape where it can be safely operated or run for the next 10 years. But all of this work is going to take time and it's going to take money. We're still conducting the investigation, which is why this is not a request for decision. I can't give that to you until I fully get a better handle of how extensive all the problems are. But no matter what we do, I'm going to need to bring in an engineering structural consultant to get me a correct design done up, then bid it out, award it, and construct it. I do not see any way that I can get that work done before the end of September. And even then, it's going to be dependent upon the contractor's timelines and availability. So I don't see the swimming pool reopening before the end of September as it stands. Probably longer, because myself, Jason, and Reg, and the consultants rep discussed alternatives. And I, as a civil engineer, cannot sign off any of those alternatives because I don't consider them safe. They're not safe for our staff. They're not safe for the public. So that's where we stand. Is we'll continue investigating it and bring back an RFD for direction. But at this time, this is a fairly big ticket repair that would have to be coming from a council directive to do.
Okay, so before I call for a motion though, you're asking for a decision. Okay, this is just a briefing. Okay, question, Stephanie?
Is there any way to keep the outdoor pool open for September if we're losing the indoor pool? I've had some swim club parents talk to me and stuff, and they were hoping to reach out anyways and talk to us about the closing in September, as it does affect their schedule. Yeah.
We might be able to, in light of this, I'll rediscuss with Andrea and Reg and Jason, and in light of the adjusted schedule that came from the contractor for work at on the flood berm, we might be able to, but it won't be a full continuous open. There will be a period of time where we have to have no public in the building while we lift in and out the MAU if we proceed with that.
Lisa?
So I have really mixed feelings on this one, specifically because we continue to put capital into this building for it to continually fail. When are we as a council going to say, next year, let's work on a brand new building? Because obviously it should be a little bit further up on our plans for capital plans rather than where it sits right now. Because 10 years, after 10 years, it's like almost every single year we're putting $1 million into that building. We could have a new building.
So in light of the statements that were in the master plan for the Parks and Rec, there will be in next year's capital budget, an item to retain a planner / architect to look at the BCF and that recreation area as a whole to identify the most appropriate place to put a new pool building and to begin developing public input surveys on what is the new pool supposed to be looking like. That being said, we need to do the planning exercise to determine where the new pool is going to go. Then we'll need to do a conceptual design exercise for what the new pool fully details and then budget that up. So you're probably looking at even if we start next year, I would say you're looking at a 4 to 5 year window. That's assuming that we get any grant applications on the first try type of thing, and that there are even grants that we can find. You're probably looking at least 4 to 5 or 6 years to get a new pool constructed and operating.
Well, thanks, Dave. And I don't like that bad news. You can stop that anytime soon. But yeah, I think that it would be contingent on us to put that as a number one priority for this council to get it done. Because I'm just sick of it. Like thousands upon thousands of dollars. And it's not the fault of anybody. It's just old infrastructure, and we just have to do what we need to do.
Stephanie?
Is it possible at looking towards partnering with some sort of transportation and municipality close by with a pool to transport users that want to use the pool? Because we're losing out on a big recreation that's healthy for our kids and our future, and so just looking into the future for that, I guess.
So in the period of time since we've identified the information, because this only came to, the details I've gotten here only came to me on the Wednesday, those discussions have not been had with any adjacent organizations, but it's something that we can look into. We may need to look into it just for even for the period during construction so that we can do some sort of coverage. But if it's a more longer period, then that would be a conversation that needs to be had with adjacent municipalities as part of the, what's the acronyms for the
Intermunicipal.
yeah, and that type of work. We have not had those discussions at this time, but it is something that we can have a discussion about.
Crystal?
So the construction that happened and they didn't replace the wall, is there any type of insurance claim to the contractor or
As
anything?
far as
No?
we can tell, it was a design item, so it wasn't a contractor fault, it was a design fault. It's long enough ago that I would doubt we could go after a consulting company. And unless we have clear proof and documentation that it wasn't done on the instruction of town administration at the time, we would just be wasting money attempting even to start any form of legal thing on that.
Tony?
Yeah, that was my question exactly, is insurance and how long ago it was, and obviously it wasn't done properly and that's caused us a bigger problem now. But to Lisa's point, yeah, we're getting to a new pool, $1 million at a time. It's just not a new structure, so yes, unfortunate, but and the closure is unfortunate as well, but we need to deal with it, do it properly.
Tom?
So Councillor Hanson Zacharek and I have been on council for many, 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 many years. And year after year after year after year, we've put money into that pool. It, you know, in retrospect, 10 years ago, we should have said, no, we're not putting any more money into it. We're going to bulldoze it and we're going to put that money into reserve and we're going to build a new pool. We recognize that it's such a valuable thing to the community and people like it and use it tremendously, but to keep spending millions of dollars fixing that relic up is to me absolutely a waste of taxpayers' money. And we've got to stop. We've got to just say, no, bulldoze it, right? And we'll bite the bullet and it'll take us 2 or 3 years to build a new pool, whatever. But that will save us $2 or $3 million, I'm sure, over the next 2 or 3 years, because it's endless. I mean, it's a black hole. We just put money in and money in and money in, and it doesn't get any better. It just, something else comes up. We got to put more money in. So I'm kind of with Councillor Hanson Zacharek. Enough is enough. I mean, we got bulldozers out there doing the dike, don't we? What if they kind of ran through the whole outfit and, oh, gee whiz, now it's closed? And no, I didn't say that, but you know what I'm saying is that, man, I just can't bear it anymore. It's $1 million here and $1 million there and $1 million, and now we've got a sinkhole under it. It's like, are you kidding me? We're gonna put another million or two into that? I can't take it anymore.
Stephanie?
I don't know how it would look, but look at partnering with a user group, just throwing things out there, say like a school or something, and see what kind of funds they would have to put into it too with the town and build the town pool, maybe. I don't know. Sorry, throwing stuff out there.
So I just want to address Councillor Zariski's comment about the money piece. So like in my time here, we've had planned improvements, which has been a water slide, which we didn't have. So that wasn't a fix. That was a new water slide piece. Plus we put a zero entry pool in, which at the council of the day, which was before my time, that's what they wanted as an improvement. So again, that wasn't an emergency repair. That was actually an enhancement improvement to it. So since that time though, the only thing that I can recall that we actually had sort of that has cost us significant money has been the outdoor pool repair, which was about 300 grand. And these air handling units, which again was a planned item. So I don't disagree about the idea about stop repairing and let's build a new pool. However, outside of enhancements and nice things that council has decided they've wanted over the last 8 or 10 years, probably have spent less than $1 million on emergency type things, notwithstanding whatever this is. New pool, if you recall the Parks and Rec master plan, was minimum 30 million. That's a big jump. There's a few repairs that you can still do while you put money away and start to look for reserves or start to look for grant applications for it. I think if we, to speak to Tom's comment, which was caught for eternity, by the way, Tom, running a bulldozer through the pool, like that's great. Like that solves the problem and does something with it this fall and winter. But unless we're thinking we can find 30 million somewhere, like we're not building this for a few years, right? And so I think, is it better to put money away or put money in it to fix it, to keep it going while we work on a plan for 5 or 6 years from now? I think that's the right thing to do. And I think you think it might be not a great investment, but I think it's, if we want to have the pool, because the closest indoor pool to us is Three Hills. So if you want to have a pool that's for the community for the next half dozen years or 5 years or so, I believe it's a worthwhile investment for us to make. And I don't think it's actually throwing money away. I think it's actually going to help save the investment that we've made over the last 5 or 7 years. So there's my 2 cents of it.
So with where we stand on the briefing note, this is just simply a status update of where we are now so that I could share the bad news with council, because, I'm just a sharer. I think it'd be possible for us to bring an RFD for actual council decision in about 2 weeks' time. I should have enough information from further investigation and talk to a consultant to get some better price estimates on the repairs on an option A and an option B repair, so the council can make a much more valid and informed decision than what the initial findings are showing. Maybe I'll be positive for once and it'll come back good. But I'm just wanted to make sure the council had a good opportunity to understand, and the public as well, where we're standing right now with that pool, that this is not going to be a fast repair. This is not going to be, oh, we can do something and make it work and have it back up and running a week from now and everything's good. There is a significant problem, and we've hit a point where we can't band-aid it anymore. This is going to take a bit of work to get this done in a way that is safe for the staff to actually function in there.
Anybody else? So you're telling me that they've been doing this way for, how old's that pool?
They've been doing it this way since the new filters got put in, and that was in,
That would have been probably 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
When the filter systems were put in.
So I'm just wondering, like, okay, we've been dealing with it for 10 years and now we're gonna spend $250,000 to just make the space bigger?
my opinion is it probably should have been made bigger to begin with. If you go and look at that mechanical room, it is incredibly congested. There's a series of valves for the for the extra chlorine that's needed for a pool that Andrea is the only person small enough to reach through the piping system to reach the back valve. We've had to relocate some of the chemicals because there was 2 chemicals that were next to each other that, if mixed, caused a poisonous gas, and they had been installed in there in that shape, and we've had to reassess. Last year we moved those around so that we could make sure that that was safe. I'm trying to get it so that the mechanical room can be used in a way where I don't have my staff continuously going. I have had staff say I'm unwilling to do that and put a refusal to work because of some of the conditions in there. And we need to fix that. Otherwise we are going, between what's just happened and what's there, we're going to have an accident.
Okay, and so then this hot tub, it's a never ending issue. Can we maybe, if we're gonna try and start saving some money and quit investing it, is the hot tub, like, is it something we should just keep spending money on? Because that's, you haven't even got that in here, and from what I'm hearing, that's not even working.
The hot tub, it has an issue with the jets because the compressor is problematic. We're working to try and source a better unit. Is the compressor, I think? Is it the compressor or the pump? The blower. We've been working to try and source a better one for that that's not massively expensive for a while, because that is a unit that's in the men's locker room and is incredibly loud because it hasn't been properly insulated from a soundproofing perspective. And if we do insulate it from a soundproofing perspective, we cause it to overheat. So we're trying to solve that problem as well. And we've been working on that for a while. But you're correct, that's not in here, but we might be able to find a way to resolve that problem if we have space in the mechanical room where it probably should have actually been located in the first place.
Stephanie?
I think we should look into if we can go back after the people that did this work, because by the sounds of things, like, this is horrendous and a huge problem.
I will talk to our town solicitor and see what we can do, but I have no great expectations about that.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Dave, let's move on to 8.4.2, please.
Okay, so 8.4.2 is also the Aquaplex. So this was a planned and previously approved update to it. So the main air handling unit, which handles the air obviously and the heating in the system, is simply put beyond its design life. We had money set aside several years ago for this. We finally got a chance to actually work on it. The original bids came in quite a bit over. However, they included work on some boilers that are approaching end of life that we would have liked to have done. But if we eliminate those, we are down to 600 grand. I believe it was $615,000, 515 for CREMAC to do the work. The MAU, this is 400,000 some more than what our budget was. However, this is simply the cost of what it is to do now. As indicated, the MAU is a fire hazard in that it's caught fire 3 times in the last several years. It is also on the upper floor. It is incredibly difficult to access it due to its age. It's a larger unit, so the backside is limited access, as in if I have a large meal, I'm not getting through to it. So the new unit is smaller, will allow for better maintenance, and is newer. It'll have a significantly longer lifespan than what the pool is currently predicted for under the master plan. However, we could pull this out and put it up for sale as a salvage unit once we build the new pool and recover funds. But again, if we choose not to do the work, getting parts for the current one is questionable. And if it catches fire again and we don't catch it fast enough, we could lose the Aquaplex.
Can I get a motion, please, council? Tony?
I move that council approve the additional funds of the Aquaplex MAU replacement project in the amount of $425,000.
Seconder Stephanie, comments? Tony?
Yeah, that was one of my comments, was whether this thing had salvage value once we got our new pool, and you indicated there's resale value from it.
There's potential for it, so that's what we're keeping in mind on this one, is that there would still be quite a bit of life left. So there should be an opportunity to sell it on.
Crystal?
And again, for the listening public, this is why we have amortization. This is why this was a planned replacement. We know the thing is going to give us 10 years, and you plan for that through amortization. So this is money that is sitting in our reserves already. It's just going to cost us more because of the cost of everything going up.
Yeah.
Crystal?
So 300,000 was approved in 2022, so you're looking for an extra 125, really?
So we're looking for an additional 425 to account for the increase in, because the unit itself plus the install comes to 615. And we've had to use some money already to get the engineering work to select and specify a unit.
That's double than what was budgeted. Oh my gosh.
I'm aware of that.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody else?
I'd like to point out that we won't, should a council approve this all tonight, the discussion with the contractor will be that it's awarded, but it's conditional on the RFD that comes back about the pool in a few weeks' time.
Well, I think it has no choice but to have that. All right, anybody else? Lisa?
I would just like to say that I would like to say no. However, I understand where you're coming from and the fact that there's a lot of people that use that pool, so it's important. But I really want to make sure that it is noted that we need to accelerate the building of a new pool.
Okay, so this MAU, you're talking about this makeup air unit, you're saying that you can, and I'm just throwing this out there, but you're saying you can get parts to work
The-
on this particular one?
The new one that we're buying is a new purchase, so it's one that's coming off of a mid-run production run, so parts are available. The old one, we're having difficulty getting parts for, as in Reg has to phone around and look for someone that's still got some sitting on a shelf somewhere because they're not currently being manufactured. The existing MAU, that is.
Yeah, so like if you had, I'm just, again, just trying to figure out this thing. So if you're throwing, if you're going for, if Reg has to phone around and try and find more of these parts, if we found more of these parts, what's the chance of them, what's the extension?
On the existing MAU,
Yeah,
it's already past the end of its design life. Nothing's being manufactured for it. So if we did find one, odds are another part would fail within a few months. It is a unit that is beyond the end of its life.
Patrick?
I didn't look carefully enough at our list of grants or whatever, but have we looked at the municipal green fund for the retrofits that may be applicable to part of this?
We've been working through several of the green ones, the MCC AC one and that. I believe the last time we looked for a grant on this, the response was no. I will double check that, but but the grants, we've not had good opportunity. We've not had success on those ones to the extent that we would have liked. And we've also found that the MCC AC green grants are very labor intensive for the money that we back. In all honesty, what Reg and I are finding is that we very likely spend the majority of the money that we're getting in the grant in Reg's time just dealing with the paperwork for the grant.
All right, anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? No. Tom opposed? All right, can I get a motion for the next awarding to Cremac Metals, please? Tony?
I move that council approve the award of the Aquaplex MAU replacement project to Ceramic Metals Products Limited for the amount of $615,515 even, excluding GST.
I'll just note it's Cremac, sorry.
Cremac.
Seconder, please. Patrick, comments? Lisa?
What is the timeline for that project?
If we were able to successfully award it right now, we would be able to do the work in September through the planned outage. That was one of the reasons why we planned for the month-long outage. With us having to potentially delay a little bit in order to sort out the RFD for the larger pool issue, it may delay us a couple of weeks, but given the fact that the pool is going to be closed for a while, probably isn't going to have a significant impact on schedule.
Anybody else? So as Stephanie asked earlier, the extension of the outdoor pool, how far could you push that?
It's weather dependent. If we have a good, if we have a good September, it should be able to last on, but as soon as we start getting close to freezing during the evenings, we're gonna have to shut it down so that we don't crack pipes in the pool.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Opposed? Note Tom on the file. Carried. All right, council, can I get a motion to go in closed session, please? Patrick?
I move that council close the meeting to the public to discuss third-party contracts and personnel as per VoIP 16, disclosure harmful to business interest of a third party, and VoIP 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations, VoIP 24, advice from officials.
Seconder, please. Sorry, Crystal. All in favor? Carrie. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Have a good week and enjoy the heat out there. Take care.